Video, I will give you an overview of the magazine cover project. This will be your final project in this class, which means it's worth 20% of your full semester grade, and there will be a lot of process checks along the way, so it has the potential of really boosting up your grade if you do well on it. The format, the final size of the cover will be trimmed to 8 7/8 of an inch by 11 1/4 of an inch tall, and it will have a 1/8 of an inch bleed on it. So let me just pause there and show you how to set that up in Illustrator. People get nervous when they see fractions like this, but it's really like saying the size is 8 inches plus 7 divided by 8, whatever that comes out to, and 11 by 1 divided by 1/4. This one you probably know, 1/4 of an inch is 0.25. But let me show you a way to, like, kind of a bulletproof way to do that when you're just given fractions. So we're going to go into Illustrator. We're going to first start with the width. And what you can do is Illustrator does division, believe it or not. So you can go 7/8 and then hit the tab key, and it does that for you. So that is what 7/8 of an inch looks like. Now you just need the rest. So you just go up here and go plus sign and then 8 and then tab away, and there's your 8 7/8 of an inch. And just in case you missed that the first time around, let's do the same thing for the 11 1/4. So we will go the 1/4 first. So 1 divided by 4, tab away, and then we'll go back in here. We'll put in, get rid of that, go with the plus 11, tab away. So 8 7/8 by 11 1/4, and then we need a bleed of 1/8 of an inch. We could do the same thing here where we just put the cursor in there, go 1 divided by 8, tab away, and that is 0.125. And notice that I have this lock, so it filled in all the boxes with 0.125. And then you just simply hit create, and you should end up with an artboard. I had it set to 4 artboards. That's not a problem. If I didn't want them, I could just simply grab this artboard tool and delete some of the other ones. I always like to have a couple artboards, so maybe just move them a good distance away from each other would be nice. But whether you have one artboard or multiple artboards, a key thing is that this measures your 8 7/8, this measures your 11 1/4, and this red line represents the bleed, which means that it is 1/8 of an inch beyond. And you can always check that kind of stuff again by just clicking on the artboard tool over here, clicking on the artboard, and then you can look in here and see that your width is, and it rounds it here to 8.88, and your height is 11.25. The objective of this project is to start with the image of a portrait that is lit with a 10 or a 2 o'clock lighting to show a great deal of three-dimensional form, and I'll show you some visuals on that in a second. You will heavily manipulate the image with texture while learning a great deal about Photoshop's layers and masking. You'll end up with a believable, now I put that in quotation marks, image that has a great deal of 3D form, because you'll tend to make yourself look like you really have a bad skin condition, or there's something really wrong with you, or you look like an alien. But we want it believable in that the masking that you're going to learn about is very smooth, and the transitions into the lips and the eyes and that kind of thing are very nice, and that you didn't flatten out the image where it looks like you're holding a flat mask in front of your face. And I mean that as in like an old school mask, like a masquerade party. We don't want that look. We want the texture to wrap around your face. Yeah, I just said that. Make the final project as believable and professionally designed as possible. And the key thing is we've got a long time to work at it. So my expectation is that you're going to do your masks, which are time consuming, and you're going to realize they're not good enough, and you're going to go in there and you're going to smooth them out and just keep doing it until it looks great. You also need to have good typography and a proper foreground-background relationship, meaning that if the image is of you, You are what stands out, not the background with some, crazy spaceship in the background or planets or something like that. If you do have stuff like that in the background, you would definitely tone it way, way, way down. So let me start going through some of these with examples. So what do I mean by 10 or 2 o'clock lighting? Well, if you're in the classroom with me, I'll be able to help you with that. We will be able to take photos of you and get the correct lighting. But if you're not, and you need to take the photo yourself, what we're after is an image that's more like this one. And so what that 10 and 2 o'clock refers to is that the main lighting source would either be coming at 10 o'clock, looking at a clock, or 2 o'clock. So in this case, it's coming from 2 o'clock. So what it does is it darkens one side of the face just a little bit. Doesn't even have to be quite this dark. But what we want to do is keep all those rounded face. So you see how this person has a rounded cheek here. You can see the roundness of the nose, the lips, the neck. We want all that both with the start of your image and by the time the project is over with. Not that this image is bad, but what you definitely want to avoid is like a straight on light source, especially from something like a flash where your face is void of all form and roundness. So again, this is a professional photographer. He, even though had more of a straight on lighting, was able to keep that. I tried to find like a good example of a bad example, but sometimes it's better that I don't show them anyway. So just make sure that one side of the face is a little darker, the other's more lit. Now you can do that without a professional studio if you just kind of stand near a window, let the light coming through the window light one side of your face more than the other, and then have someone snap a picture of you from there. And then maybe just spending a little bit of time with that in Photoshop, and you should be able to get the image to look nice like this. Some past student work by clicking this link here below, and I'll show you what I mean by the texture and the still keeping a form of realism. So you can see this student's face, one side darker, the other lighter, like we just talked about, but the texture here looks like it really wraps around his face and it's smooth going into his hair. His lips have some texture on them, but it's not the exact same texture and same amount of texture, so that it still looks rounded. His nose looks nice and rounded. Similar here. You don't ever want to get the image to where it totally flattens the image out. This one's very strong in that way, where you can see the contours of her cheeks. Very similar here. Again, you just don't want it to flatten out. You still want to see a very rounded forms even after it's done. So you can see, like, creases here, the roundness of the nose, the shapes of the lips. That is your goal, is to keep all of the detail, but for there to be that crazy amount of texture that's been put over the top. Those visuals help you with the objectives, the required content. The masthead, which is a fancy way of saying the name of the magazine, is Science Quarterly. The issue will be Summer 2021. The main storyline choices are, and I'll let you read through these, you'll have access to this, of course, and then go back, look at the examples, see how they incorporated all this required content. The Photoshop learning objectives is basically really delving into layers and their blending modes and opacity settings. That's why we're taking such a long time on this project, so you don't feel like it's an assignment in the book that you have to get done within 1 week. Just like the first project was your chance to really explore Illustrator, this is your project to really explore Photoshop. So you'll be creating realistic looking textures while maintaining that three-dimensional illusion. We want to still see that your nose is rounded after you're done with the project. So if you started with a human face that was lit from the left, then it should still look like it's lit from the left and darker on the right when you're finished. You will use warping features and sizing features inside of Photoshop to make the texture looks like it is contouring to your face. And you'll learn a lot about masking so that you can get rid of the unneeded parts of the texture. You can experiment with layer effects to enhance the texture. The process, so you want to begin your design like a graphic designer would do. So you start out, and you might be surprised that we're doing this in Illustrator. We're really not doing it in Illustrator. We just start in Illustrator and end in Illustrator, but 90% of the work you're doing will be done in Photoshop. But you look at this, you say, how big should I have my image on here? Now, this is a very important concept. Your face should be this big or very close to it on the magazine. You'll have the masthead up here, be able to put the teaser titles around. Most people put their face tiny in there, which is, I guess it's kind of scary to look at yourself up that close. But you'll have so much texture by the time you're finished, you won't have to worry about anything like that. So look at the examples, make sure it's in there close. But what you want to do is just kind of get an idea with once you have your photograph, should it be placed off to the side a little bit so you have room for the titles? If it makes sense, can you fit the titles around the corners of it, and so on. It's design. And then start harvesting texture. Now you can do this with your camera. In the early days, I discouraged people from using the web because there was only a few good images of texture on the web that were high enough resolution to use, but nowadays you can use the web and just make sure you, in the search engine, you put in high res. And speaking of resolution, on both the image that you get and the texture you find, you want at an absolute minimum for it to measure 1500 pixels wide. And so 2 ways to tell how big the texture is. It used to tell in Google Images when you did a search right underneath it how big it was. If anybody knows how to bring that back, let me know. But one thing that you can do is just go to settings or tools in here. I think it's tools, and then you can choose under size, you can choose large, and then it should filter out smaller images. But what you want to do is once you find a texture that you like, click on it, then click on it here. You want to go to the page where it's actually at, where you can see it in the highest resolution, and then you can right click on it, save the image, and then open it in Photoshop and check. So I'll save this and I'll open it in Photoshop and show you what I find. With this open in Photoshop, I'm going to go to image size, and I can see that it is 1200 pixels across. Now my recommended minimum is 1500 pixels across for the portrait. If this is relatively close to that, you could probably get away with it, but you could probably also go back into Google and refine the search a little bit. Back in Google, you should find something under settings, settings, and then advanced search, and then down here you can experiment with let's see, image size, and then probably set it to like 2 meg or 4 meg and see if it narrows it down to better texture sizes for you. By the time you are finished with this project, you should have no less than 15 layers in Photoshop to give you plenty of experience of adjusting the opacity and so on to get a bunch of different layers to work together. The main focus right now is to make sure that you get an image. And if you're in class with me, it will definitely be you, and you'll have my help to get it done. If it's not, if you're in an online class, the first choice would be that the image is of you. Second choice, if you want to shoot it and make sure that it's good, you can use someone that you know, but because this is a college class and the image could be used for promotional purposes, you do have to have them sign this waiver, which will be linked in the announcements. And then the third choice, but I would only use this as a last resort, would be an image from the internet. The main reason is if you do this, you could run into legal problems showing this in your portfolio, because a portfolio is technically something that you're using to get work. And then if someone says, hey, that's my photography, or that's me, it opens up a can of worms. But if that's what you have to do to get the project done, then that's what you have to do. And I'll just show you the waiver real quick so you know that you clicked on the right thing. Just basically it's something that person would need to sign, and then you would need to submit to me before the 2nd process check. And in the next video, I'll continue talking about this project and we'll focus more on the typography and how to make it look great.